So, have you ever noticed when somebody says something and before you know it, it's like you're already defending yourself? You're trying to figure some things out, and you think you're doing the right thing, but actually what's happening is something completely different. Like maybe you sit down to write a post and suddenly you're rewriting that first sentence over and over. Or somebody asks you what you do and your mind goes completely blank. That one's a tough one. Maybe it feels like a trigger and it's caused the reaction, but what if there's something that happens in between? I'm going to show you in just a second. So I want to show you what I believe is the most important moments in self-leadership. So I think that once you recognize it, because I know you guys are aware of a lot of stuff, there's just certain things that we just haven't learned yet, and I think this might be one of those things. So a lot of people think that when you have a trigger, boom, you have a reaction just that quickly. But what if it's not exactly like that, right? I mean, when something happens, we react. If somebody criticizes us, we react. If somebody doesn't show up for a meeting, we react. Sometimes if we have an opportunity to say, go speak, that's not somebody else. We're still reacting. So what is that thing that's going on? So for most of us, it feels just boom, automatic. It's happened. It's so fast, we don't even realize that there's a difference. But I don't think that's the whole picture. What I think is there's a trigger that happens. There's this gap, albeit microscopic, and then the reaction happens. Let's talk about that for a minute. This gap right here, even though it happens so fast that you can't really process it like a human can't, but it's like a computer. It can process tons and tons and tons of stuff. There's a lot that goes on in this tiny little gap. I actually have coined a term called the microscopic moment, because I think we really need to like looking in a microscope, really figure out what the heck's going on. That's what's going to help us figure out what to do between this and this, because there's not a lot out there that teaches us what to do. So once you can see it, it stops being so invisible. So let's say you're about to post something online and then you don't. Or maybe you might not realize, I've got so many screens here. Maybe you might not realize that there was just this ton of thoughts that ran through your mind, like, oh, I should post this thing, and then you have a reaction. But in the what happened in there? Might be you may have had all these questions run through your mind without even realizing it. Like, well, what if somebody doesn't like it? Well, what if I get pushback? Oh my gosh, what if a family member sees it? That's like the worst, right? So what happens? You don't post, right? Then you think about maybe, oh, I should raise my prices. And then it's like, oh my gosh, what if people leave? Or what if I'm confronted about them, right? Thoughts, but not like consciously thinking about the thoughts. They just fly through your mind. You're like, never mind, and you just move on. So we don't raise our prices. We don't do that thing we would have liked to have done. So we'll do one more. Let's say you've been thinking about something, but what was the thing? Oh, you want to say no, or you're going to start saying no. Like you say yes too many times, right? We do that a lot. We're people pleasers. A lot of us are. And what do? We're like, I'm going to say no next time. I'm going to say no. I'm not going to let that happen again. Deb, will you have that? Okay. And then I'm upset with myself. I'm really upset with them. How dare they ask me? They should know how upset this makes me. But the truth of the matter is they are doing what's natural. Every time they ask, I say yes. Why would they not ask again? It's me that has to do it differently. I have to experience them asking. That's the trigger, and then my reaction. But what happened that's the trigger, right? Hey, Deb, would you help me? And I have this thing go on, and there's this reaction of, sure, right? And I respond with a yes when I really wanted to say no, right? I don't want people to get upset. I don't want them to think that I don't care, but I'm tired of saying yes. So how do I say no and feel good about that, or feel that I did the right thing for me, right? So here's what I want you to notice. The trigger, right, them asking me, that wasn't exactly what caused the reaction. That's what ended up. But this gap right here, like there was something that happened in this gap right here. Let's take a look at what that is, because that is going to help clue us into how do we react or respond differently. Okay, so there is something that, of course my pen is going to run out. Let me grab this other handy dandy Sharpie right here. So there's a trigger, and then we have actually a pattern of protection, and then we have the reaction. So let's talk about what is a pattern of protection. So patterns of protection are learned ways that help protect us from something that, whether we consciously or not, think might be emotionally risky. So there's nothing wrong with us. We're not broken. It's like, that's just the way the brain works. And I think that it's good to know that, and that everybody does it, but some people figure out how to not allow it to affect them in that negative way. And those are the people that are moving on, and we see them when they seem so sure of themselves and confident and full of self-trust, right? And we're like, why can't I be that way? Well, somewhere along the way, they learned how to handle that. And that's what we're wanting you to start learning to handle, okay? So if we learn in our lives over time, like, oh my gosh, that feels unsafe, what are we going to do? We're going to perform in a way that keeps us safe. Again, that's not all conscious awareness. That's way, way, way deep in there. Okay, so those are like the automatic behaviors. We can also call them automatic patterns, because that's what it is. We follow a certain route. We follow that same certain route, that same certain route, that same certain route. What we're trying to do is learn, like, maybe there's a different route to get to an end result that doesn't create all the emotional upset. Okay. So let's see, when the pattern shows up, it can show up in a variety of different ways. Sometimes it will tell us to retreat and hide, and other times it's saying, better please everybody or else you might get in trouble, right? Or we start to overthink, like this or this or this or this, and sometimes it ends up pulling us in two different directions at the same time. It can show up in a whole bunch of different ways. Those are just some examples. I am sure that you've had at least a couple of those happen in your life. So whatever it is that shows up, that showing up part, whether it's the overthinking, the second guessing, pulling in two directions, whatever, the people pleasing, those are those things that show up. That's its job, is to protect you. It's to protect you emotionally, even if it keeps you stuck, doesn't matter. Its job is to protect you, and that's its job one. And it does that, and it hides other stuff from you. We'll go over some more of that in just a second. Okay, so here's why this mattered. The goal of learning how to handle these things is not to stop having protective patterns, to make it all go away, to stop having triggers. That's not what happens. In fact, they don't go away. Okay, they don't. How you handle them changes, and well, we'll get into that too. Okay, so the goal is to notice sooner, like, oh, that's showing up again. Oh, that's showing up again. You may already be there, and you may be looking for what's the next thing. If you're not already there, that's fine. When you start paying attention, you will start seeing them. That's how it works, right? So once you notice, the next step is to pause for a moment. Even if you're in the middle of it with someone, you can say, hang on a second. Now, if you don't feel comfortable doing that, you're going to end up going through your emotions. You can think about it later. Okay, so you're covered either way. Because if you can say, hang on a second, and you can pause is where you have a choice, because you're not going through that same pattern. You're saying, hold on, I want to choose something different. And you're able to do that. It's harder at first. It gets easier the more you practice it. That's why practice and consistency is so important. Okay. So once you pause, you have the choice, and instead of automatically reacting, you get to decide something different. And that tiny, tiny change, that's what changes everything. That pause changes everything. Okay, so I want to tell you a little story that will demonstrate or illustrate all of this. Not so long ago, I was sitting in my office and I kept hearing this noise. I couldn't identify the noise, but I was busy and I couldn't stop. But as soon as I could stop, I went outside because it was driving me crazy. And what it was a squirrel that had been captured in a cage or in a box, and he was scratching to get out. Oh, so of course it pulled on my heartstrings, right? What do I do? Do I let the squirrel out? It's not on my property. Like, I just was like barraged with all these questions. Okay, no, this was not too long ago. Now, years ago, I would have spent all kinds of time trying to figure out, what do I do? How do I figure this out? I need to find this one solution that's going to satisfy all the participants. Okay. Do I feed the squirrel? Do I leave it? Do I upset the neighbors? Do I do nothing? And it all falls under the umbrella of overthinking, right? That's the umbrella. That is the pattern of protection, because what was trying to protect me, the pattern of protection, which was overthinking, was the way it showed up. What was underneath that was a fear of something, right? So either it was a fear of upsetting someone, or a fear of making the wrong decision, or a fear of something else in my case. But it was fear was stopping me from moving forward. But the way it showed up was this indecision, this overthinking. Do I do this? Do I do that? If I do this, this is upsetting. If I do that, that is upsetting. Maybe to them, maybe to the squirrel, maybe to me. And so it's just this, so it's crazy. It's crazy making, right? Okay. So once I realized now that I have the skills, right? Like I said, this happened not so long ago, like maybe 2 months ago. And somebody said, they were with me, they're like, what are you doing? And I was like, I'm just trying to figure it out. She, I think you're overthinking. I think you're overthinking this. Wow, that was like the best thing that could have happened to me, because at the moment she said it, boom, there was the pause. I was able to stop all the thinking, and I could stop going, how do I fix this so that everything and everyone is good and nobody gets upset, right? That's an external kind of conceptual or concept. Like, how do I fix it? That means for everybody else. But then I started thinking, what is the choice that aligns most with what matters to me? Now that's internal. And it was a very different sensation, right? So here's the thing. That is a form of self-leadership, right? Most people think of self-leadership that it's about changing or fixing their reactions, about stopping the triggers from upsetting them, and knowing what to do in every situation. Like, this is how you do leadership, right? But that's not what it is. That's not what it is. It's quieter. It's more gentle, more compassionate. It's closer in here, right? And it starts by recognizing what's happening with you inside of this trigger that shifts to a pattern of protection that causes the reaction that it does. Okay? Because that's where choice lives. So the more you can notice that moment, the more you can notice that moment. Hold on. The more you can notice that moment, the steadier you become. The more you notice that moment, the more you can practice. And again, practicing it and consistency. And think about that. Practice and consistency. That's how you shift from the way that you do things now to a different way. Because if you think about almost anything in your life, we have to practice it. We have to learn how to do something, from a new app we put on our phone to, I don't know, say a new recipe, right? The first time we do it, we're going to follow every direction. But then after a while, we're like, yeah, I don't like that spice and I want to add this other one or whatever. And we begin to learn how to take frames of reference and do it differently. And then we become more comfortable in that situation, right? Choice lives in those moments when we can say, hang on a second. That's a pause, right? So the more you notice that, the steadier you can become. And it's not because life suddenly isn't difficult anymore, like magic happened. All the same crap's going to happen. Just how you handle it is going to show up differently. And there's something very freeing about being able to do that, okay? I think the biggest thing is, as you learn how to do it differently, your awareness changes, and you're seeing new things, and now you're the one making the decisions, not this other automatic behavior or pattern of protection that was developed over years. You, current day, the conscious you, is the one making the decisions. Okay, so if you want to learn how to do this, I'd like for you to consider taking my 6-week course. It's called When You Know What to Do, but You Still Can't Do It, right? It's 6 weeks. It starts August the 11th. So what is that? Like 3 weeks from now. And we'll practice recognizing the moment, why those moments are happening for you, understanding what's taking over, and then building those inner skills that are going to help you pause in that moment, right? So we practice pausing in the moment, which is after the moment, right? So you have a situation that happens and you're like, in the lab, in the course, we'll practice that moment. Like, what could I have done differently? What other choice would have been possible? We're going to look at those. And it's like, that gives us the ability to choose something different. There's the magic, right? We paused. Pause. Oh, there should be some for what PAUSE stands for, because it's just an amazing moment when you get to that part. Okay, now learning these things, you're learning to trust yourself, have that self-confidence when normally you have self-confidence, I would imagine. Normally you're very confident. But in those moments, where's the confidence go? Where's the trust go? It's like, oh my God, I can't figure it out. I got to call my friend or my therapist, right? In this course, it shows you that you actually do have inside of you what it is that you need to be able to figure out. You just haven't figured out, you just haven't learned the skills to bring you to that place, right? So if you do want to find out just more about the course, click the link in the description box and it will take you to the course called When You Know What to Do, but You Still Can't Do It. All right, see you guys next week. Bye for now.